Mattress stitch is many knitters' go-to for a sturdy, nearly invisible seam that is easy to work. You can work mattress stitch 3 ways: vertically, meaning selvage to selvage, horizontally, meaning top or bottom edge to top or bottom edge, or perpendicularly, meaning joining a selvage to a top or bottom edge. All 3 methods require a tapestry needle, your finished pieces of knitted fabric to be seamed, and sewing yarn at least 3 times the length to be seamed, or in shorter lengths if you're working a very long seam. The working yarn is shown here in a contrasting color for clarity. Vertical mattress stitch allows you to join 2 pieces of knitting side to side at the selvages, as for side seams and sleeve seams of a garment. Thread the tapestry needle with your sewing yarn. Bring the needle up from the wrong side to the right side between the first and second stitch of the first row, just above the cast-on edge. On the other side, take the needle down to the wrong side between the first and second stitch of the first row, just above the cast-on edge. Bring it up to the right side in the very next row. You'll see that you've caught 1 bar with your needle, the strand of yarn that runs between the 2 stitches. Keep your stitches loose while you're working. Move back to the first side and insert the needle from right side to wrong side in the very same space where the yarn is coming up. Then bring it to the right side 2 rows above this point. You'll see that you've caught 2 bars with your needle. On the other side, insert the needle from right side to wrong side in the same space where the yarn is coming up, then bring it back to the right side 2 rows above this point. You've caught 2 bars again. Repeat, catching 2 bars at a time until you have a couple of inches worth of rows loosely sewn together. Here's the magic part. Pull firmly on the sewing needle to draw the 2 sides together. Your seam almost disappears. Grasp each end of the seam and pull to stretch it a bit. This settles the stitches and eases the sewing yarn so it's not too tight. This ensures your seaming yarn isn't so tight that it puckers the stitches and that your seam won't break if your sweater is stretched and wearing. Keep going, moving from one side to the other and catching 2 bars with each stitch. Stop every couple of inches to pull the seam closed and stretch the seam. You'll be left with an invisible vertical seam. Horizontal mattress stitch allows you to join the tops and bottoms of knitted fabric, as for the shoulder seam of a garment. This time, locate the very first stitch in the very first row under the edge. Bring your needle up through the center of that first stitch. Cross to the other piece. Again, working in the very first row under the edge, take your needle down to the wrong side through the center of the very first stitch of the row, then back up through the center of the next stitch in the row. Cross back to the first piece. Take your needle down to the wrong side in the same spot where you came up in step 2, then back up through the center of the next stitch in the row. The tapestry needle is always moving toward the end of the seam, parallel to the edges being joined. Cross back to the second piece. Take your needle down to the wrong side in the same spot where the yarn comes out, then back up through the center of the next stitch in the row. Continue in this fashion, crossing from one side to the other. Leave the stitches fairly loose so you can see the path of the yarn. Your seaming stitches follow the path of a new row of knitting between the 2 garment pieces. Again, every few inches, stop to pull firmly on the seaming yarn to tighten those stitches. The seaming yarn will disappear into your piece, leaving you with a smooth, nearly invisible seam. Hold both ends of your seam and pull to give it a good stretch. Continue until your seam is complete. Perpendicular mattress stitch is for joining a selvage to a top or bottom edge of a piece of knitted fabric, as when attaching sleeves to the body of a garment. I'll be joining my pieces like this, as if the horizontal piece is a sleeve, above the ribbing on the vertical piece. The challenge with sewing rows to stitches is that they are usually not the same size. If you sew 1 row to 1 stitch, you'll usually end up with a puckering seam. The ratio between stitch width and row height will change depending on your stitch pattern. To create a smooth seam, we need to consider gauge. You'll divide your stitch gauge by row gauge to get your ratio. I have 9 stitches in 2 inches and 15 rows in 2 inches. 9 divided by 15 equals 0.6. That ratio is closest to 2/3, so we're going to join 2 stitches to every 3 rows. Start on the vertical side. Bring the needle up from the wrong side to the right side between the first and second stitch of the first row. Cross to the other piece. Take your needle down to the wrong side through the center of the very first stitch of the row, then back up through the center of the next stitch in the row. Move back to the first side and insert the needle from right side to wrong side in the same space where the yarn is coming up. Then bring it to the right side 1 row above this point. You'll see that you've caught 1 bar with your needle. Cross back to the second piece. Take your needle down to the wrong side in the same spot where the yarn comes out, then back up through the center of the next stitch in the row. You've now joined one row to one stitch. Now let's try joining one stitch to two rows. The number of bars picked up on the needle on the vertical side determines how many rows are being joined. Here's what it looks like to join two. You'll always pick up both legs of the stitch on the horizontal side. Keep going, joining each stitch to either one row or two rows, as dictated by the calculation you did, until your seam is finished. I am alternating joining one stitch to one row and one stitch to two rows to get me to 2 stitches per 3 rows. Now you're ready for all kinds of garment constructions, from simple side seams to more complex seams such as setting in sleeves. Try out these instructions and let us know what you think in the comments.